I'm living dangerously here. Full cup of coffee over the MacBook. Michael Saylor, a guy named Michael Saylor once had a quote that said, people spend over 100,000 hours of their life working, earning money. He said the least they could do is spend 100 hours learning how to keep their money. And we earn dollars. As human beings, we go to work, we get paid. They pay us in dollars, fiat dollars. And those fiat dollars don't actually hold any value because they're making more of those units every single day. I forgot to say hello and welcome back. I'm Jor. I'm the host here on the Underrated channel. I also have a channel called the 88 Sats Radio, where we talk about Bitcoin exclusively, among other things. But the show today is titled Why Bitcoin's Price Goes Up Forever. And it is Saturday, Saturday, which is why we're talking about Bitcoin today. Satoshis are the smallest, not the smallest, they're a fraction of a Bitcoin. So in every one Bitcoin, there's 100 million Satoshis, call them sats. Just like dollars and cents, every $1, there's 100 cents. In every one Bitcoin, there's 100 million Satoshis. And that's what I believe we will be measuring the world in a decade, 2 decades, I don't know, some point, because it just makes sense. And humans usually do what makes the most sense. So let's talk about the agenda today. Why does Bitcoin's price go up forever? And as you can see here, we got a lot of stuff to get through. I like doing this though, because it kind of keeps me on track and it also lets you know what we're going to be talking about here. This is kind of the real meat. We'll zip through these ones first. So the first thing here is doing more than paid for. What does that mean? Where is this? Doing more than paid for. That's the theme of this channel. That's what we're doing here. And that's when we think about the underrated channel, becoming more underrated means you're doing more than you get paid for. You're better than you get credit for. And if you can do that consistently and continuously over time, you will add more value to the world than you get back in the short term. The idea there is that over the long term, that compounds. You can see here that you want to get 0.01% better every day, which annually is 26%. And over a decade, because of the compound effect, that actually turns into 1,000% more valuable. 1,000% more income coming in because you're more valuable. So that's one of the key things that we focus on here is becoming more valuable. And as you become more valuable, you have more value to store. And that's why every Saturday here on the Underrated channel, we talk about Bitcoin. Because from my experience and in my opinion, Bitcoin is by far the best place to store value. So if you are new here, if you're new to Bitcoin, I have a free resource. I'll have a pinned comment. I can do that now, apparently. I wasn't able to for the first little while on the channel, but I can now share links. So I have an 11-day Bitcoin journey course. It's free. I'll put the link in the pinned comment below, and you're going to learn how to buy Bitcoin, how to send and receive Bitcoin, how to store Bitcoin safely, and some best practices that I've picked up along the way. I've been in Bitcoin for about 6 years now. And once you get into Bitcoin, once you're serious about it, it kind of consumes you. And that's why there's many different rabbit holes to go down. I'd say that the monetary aspect of Bitcoin is a very, very small part of it. But it's where you start. Everybody kind of gets into Bitcoin because they want to preserve their purchasing power. They want to store their value, and they want the number to go up. So that's what we're talking about today. Why does Bitcoin's price go up forever? We had a couple different zaps come in through the airwaves since I checked last. And I want to give a couple shout outs. And I think that's what I'm going to use this little QR code here on screen for, is if you do have a comment or if you want to say something and you want it broadcast. If not, you don't have to include a message there. You can just put from person. But we got a couple here. We got 6102. So I see that our guy Bill, who's been a very big supporter of the 88 Sats radio channel, has now swapped over to the Underrated channel. Love that. So shout out to Bill. Thank you, my friend. And we got 3690 units of freedom. That's what we call Satoshis. And that's from Alex, all the way in Germany. So for the Underrated channel from Alex. So thank you for those very much. And yes, that QR code on screen, if you do want to send some value my way. I'm not ever going to have any sponsors or anything on this channel. I kind of have a long-term vision that I've been working through for this channel. But it involves some, I'm not going to say it. We'll cross that bridge when it comes. I'm going to do a little underrated contest. It is Saturday, February 21st today. And there's a big game happening tomorrow very early. Canada versus the USA. And I'm Canadian myself. Used to play hockey. Still play once in a while, but not very good. But our guys here in Canada are playing against the US. So probably the biggest two demographics from this channel and also the 88 Sats radio channel are Canada and US. So what I want to do is, if you get your guess in before the puck drop tomorrow, if you put the score and the team who wins, and you're the first person to comment that, I'm going to send you maybe 1,000 sats, something. I'll get your Lightning address and I'll send you a little zap for it if anybody's guesses the correct score tomorrow morning. Okay, so the show here is titled, Why Bitcoin's Price Goes Up Forever. And I'm here to tell you that there actually is no price of Bitcoin. Because when you think of price, you think of a number, and there's multiple different numbers of Bitcoin. And what we call them instead is the exchange rate, because that's what you're doing. You're exchanging your dollars for Bitcoin. You believe that Bitcoin is a better store of value, a better place to park your cash than fiat. So there's an exchange rate. And in the USA right now, it's about, 69,000. Nice. Canada is just under 100,000. We'll say 95,000. In the UK and Europe, I believe over there, I know they're not the same, but it's approximately the same in terms of the exchange rate. Let's say that it's 55,000. And then in something like Japan, maybe it's close to 1 million, or let's go, I think it's less than that now, but maybe it's 800,000 Japanese yen for one Bitcoin. So that's kind of an important part to understand here, that there is no real price of Bitcoin. We're comparing the exchange rate between Bitcoin and all these other fiat currencies. And so currently today, and I don't want to get too far into anything here because we got a lot to get through with this, but I will say this. Today, you can trade $1, we'll just say $1 US, $1 US to keep it simple, for about 1,500 sats. So you can trade one unit. That's what I call these, because that's what they are. They're just units. They measure things, measure value. So today you can trade one unit called a US dollar for 1,500 units of Bitcoin called Satoshis. And to me, one of these things is completely made up. There's nothing that carries any weight behind the dollar other than the force of the government, I guess you'd say, maybe. The Federal Reserve is the one responsible for printing these units. They've been around for the last 111 years, I believe. And they've basically had the legal ability to print money. And it's not fair. And that's the whole problem here. It's not fair. It's not a fair system. And Bitcoin to me is a very peaceful revolution where we can just say, you know what? We're tired of the system. We're tired of getting stolen from and robbed from. Not just our money, but our time. Most importantly, our time is being stolen, because as they print more of these units, US dollars, Canadian dollars, UK quid, Japanese yen, as they print more of those units, whatever units that you're holding, they actually go down in value because there's more of those units circulating. And that's kind of the beauty of Bitcoin. And that's part of the value proposition. What we're talking about today is, why does Bitcoin's price go up forever? So I want to give a little intermission here, shouting out to the Bears, because I know there's going to be some people in the comment section here saying it's down 50% in the last 6 months. And yes, that's absolutely true. And I don't think Bitcoin, you got to be a special kind of person, I think, to be in Bitcoin at this stage of the game, because you have to be prepared for that. You have to expect that at any moment, or any month, I guess you should say, the Bitcoin price could drop. It could also double or triple, and it has before. So it's a very volatile asset. But with volatility comes opportunity. And so shout out to the Bears. If you are leaving comments here saying, have you seen the price of Bitcoin lately? I just want to say thanks, because you're helping boost these videos who otherwise haven't been getting much traction, more traction. So thank you. And just kind of going off that too, because they're right. The Bears right now are right in the sense that if you're holding Bitcoin over these last 6 months, your net worth has gone down 50%. It sucks. But here's the thing: is Bitcoin is not an investment. It's not something that you speculate with. It's something that if you are going to take the leap into Bitcoin, if you are going to hold sats, you have to be here for at least 4 to 5 years, probably longer. And the further you get into Bitcoin, the longer you hold, the more you learn about Bitcoin. this will probably turn into 40, 50 years. And a lot of people watching this will probably never sell their Bitcoin because that's what it is. It's digital farmland. It's a lot of people compare Bitcoin to gold, but the closest thing we have to compare Bitcoin to is land, because we can always find more gold. As the demand for gold grows, we can always go out and find more gold. You can't do that with land. And so we are that's what I call Bitcoiners right now. First generation Bitcoiners. So you should get into Bitcoin with the idea that you're going to be here for at least 4 years. You shouldn't pay any sort of attention to this basically illusionary exchange rate. And you should be here for at least 5 years. And then once I think you spend 5 years here, you can reevaluate things. Was Bitcoin what you thought it was? Did you make money? Were you better off because of it or worse? And then kind of go from there. But when we think about this part right here, because again, we still live in a world where the majority of people use dollars. It's the reality. As much as I would love to see us go into a Bitcoin standard tomorrow, that's just not the reality here. So when we're talking about the exchange rate of Bitcoin, the exchange rate of fiat dollars and Bitcoin, it fluctuates. And Bitcoin, if you look at it for the last 5 years, it's up. Look at it for the last 10 years, it's significantly up. And 15 years, it's, I don't know, 1,000,000% up. But why? Why is that? And there's two reasons for it. There's two reasons for price go up. That's what we'll call it. Even though we know it's the exchange rate, there's no price of Bitcoin. We're just going to keep things simple here. So number one, money printing. So every time the governments around the world print more units of their currency, there's more units of currency going around, and those have to find a place to go to. And so some of it ends up in real estate. That's why we've seen the housing prices go up for the last 50 years. That's where it mostly goes to, but it goes into all other asset classes as well. Stock market, exact same thing. If you look at the stock market over the last 20, 30, 40 years, it's basically just a straight line up. And it's because they print more money. And Bitcoin is not immune from that, but it's important to keep in mind here that the money printing is artificial. And it's artificial because even if you are somebody who's holding Bitcoin when they print money, everything around you eventually goes up with it. So the price of food, the price of energy, the price of homes, everything else goes up kind of at the same percentage. So even though you have Bitcoin and it's going up, everything around you costs more money, which means you just kind of break even there. You might get a little better off, you might be a little less, but it's about a break even. And the unfortunate thing about that is that when that happens, it's the people who don't have assets that suffer from that. Because if you are somebody who has real estate, stocks, Bitcoin, again, you just kind of break even like that. And that's why not a whole lot of people care too much, because the people with influence and power, they have assets. And so they're not as affected by money printing as the people who don't have as much. So that's the unfortunate part about it. But the second one here that I'm going to walk through is because of demand. And this is a real increase in purchasing power. So let me put it this way. Let's say that there's 1 million people out there and they're chasing 21 million Bitcoin. So this number at the bottom here, this is important. And I don't expect you to be a math major. I'm not. I'm good at math, but I'm not a math major. But when you think about it this way, 21 million, there we go. Let's get rid of those zeros. I like things looking nice. There we go. Do the same here. Okay, so 1 million people, this is the demand. People wanting Bitcoin. Bitcoin available. So this number here, let's put a little underline on that. So this is a math equation. There's 1 million people wanting to buy Bitcoin. They want to go to work. They want to take those units that they earn and they want to convert that into Bitcoin. But there's only 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be available. Right now, there's about 20 million. There's about, oh, sorry, I missed a zero there. My bad. It's my first day. 21 million, sorry. So right now, there's 20 million Bitcoin that have been mined. which that's the total amount of circulating Bitcoin. I think in March 2026, we're going to hit the 20 millionth Bitcoin mined. But so for the next 120 years, we're going to add 1 million more coins. It's hard. And if you've ever done a video before talking through numbers and things like this, it's not easy. And I take a lot of shit for it in the comments, but I try to keep it as clear as possible. So today there's 20 million Bitcoin that have been mined. From 2009 till today, 20 million Bitcoin have been mined. And that's the total amount of Bitcoin that are circulating. So for the next 120 years, there's only 1 million Bitcoin left to be mined. But if you just use this number here, I think that's a pretty good place to start, because there's really not that much difference between 20 million, 21 million. And if you use this, you're going to be worst case scenario. So the thing about demand is as this number grows, right? It goes from 100 people who wanted Bitcoin back in 2010 to 1,000 people wanting Bitcoin, and then 10,000, 100,000, and 1 million. This is kind of an arbitrary number here. But the point is that as this number goes up here, as this goes to 1.1 million want Bitcoin, 1.2 million people want Bitcoin, as this number grows, there's more and more people fighting over these same amount of scarce units. Which means, if you know very basic economics, the more people fighting for the same amount of supply, the price goes up. And the really cool thing about Bitcoin, this is where it differs from fiat, gold, anything else, is that once you have a certain amount here, that's your ownership forever. So let's look at it this way. Let's say that you had 1 Bitcoin. You were able to get 1 Bitcoin. You're an absolute legend if you're able to. Well, let's just say that you're able to get 1 Bitcoin. This is a good way to look at it. And I'm just going to say right now, I usually try to keep these videos less than 20 minutes, but I don't really want to rush too fast. I'm trying to right now, but we'll see. Might be an exception here. So you have 1 Bitcoin, absolute legend. There will be very few amount of people that ever own 1 Bitcoin. I think the estimate right now is about 300,000 people on planet Earth own 1 Bitcoin. So if you have 1 Bitcoin, your family, if you can protect that Bitcoin, if you can keep that Bitcoin, you have no idea how much future wealth that's going to contain. But anyways, what's your ownership here? You can say I got 1 of them, and there are 21 million total. So it's a small number, but I mean, if you consider how much of the world wealth you have today, I'm guessing the number would be way over here, or probably over here. So that's pretty good. That's a pretty good start. But again, this is going to be your essentially the ownership of the world. That percentage. That's if my theory is correct, and in a couple decades from now we're actually pricing things in satoshis. This is going to be your ownership of the world, of all the assets and future productivity of the world. But you can see here how this works. And I'll show you how both gold and fiat work, where if you increase the supply of this we decide that we want to print 1 million more Bitcoin, watch this percentage right here. It drops. So the exact same thing happens when they print dollars. The exact same thing happens when they mine more gold. Your percentage, even though it didn't change, your percentage of the network goes down. Even though the total amount that you own did not change, your percentage of the network goes down. So with Bitcoin, because this number's fixed, the denominator here, your percentage will never go down. It can only go up. And it probably will go up for a while. It'll kind of fluctuate because there's people that lose Bitcoin every day. And so this number here, it will never go up. It will only go down. So this is the total available, but you also have to consider the Bitcoin supply. No, I guess you'd say Bitcoin circulating. Let's use Bitcoin available here, because I would say if the Bitcoin hasn't been lost, it's available. And this is total Bitcoin to be mined. So new Bitcoin are created every 10 minutes. That's the mining process. Every 10 minutes on average, there's a new block. And that's what, sorry. So I hope you can understand that part of it, in the sense of there's the real increase versus the artificial increase. And that's the real part, is as this number goes up here, as more and more people learn about Bitcoin, figure out why it's so valuable, as this number goes up, the price goes up with it, because there's more people who are fighting for those same amount of scarce units we call Bitcoin or sats. So it's the demand here that really is the real driver. Money printing, it's artificial, it's fake. Even though the number goes up, those who are holding Bitcoin don't actually become any more wealthy. They just have a bigger ego. Versus the demand, that's something that's real. And the second part here is why it will continue. And I could list about 5 or 6 different things here, but I'm going to focus on 2 things real quickly that have been kind of buzzy lately, buzzing. So this first one here is AI agents. And if you've been paying attention to any of the technological advances over these last couple of years, the movement and the revolution of AI agents is going to be pretty massive. And it's already cost a lot of people, human beings, jobs, because these agents do not sleep. They do not take coffee breaks. They do not get sick. They work 24 hours a day, and they do it for much cheaper than humans. So these AI agents, as they're talking to each other, as they're participating in this new network, this new economy, they're going to be accepting Bitcoin, because they're not going to want to exchange Canadian to yen to USD to this token to that token. It's going to be Bitcoin, because Bitcoin has micropayments, which means you can send fractions of a penny across the Bitcoin Lightning Network. Plus, it takes real energy to create these units. And AI is much smarter than most human beings. And so they understand already that Bitcoin is the currency. So imagine all these AI agents, as they grow, they're actually going to be part of this demand here. So it's not just going to be people wanting Bitcoin. It's going to be people's AI agents wanting Bitcoin. And imagine as the demand for this goes up, imagine the value of these Satoshis. Again, something that you can trade $1 for today for 1,500 sats. Imagine as this whole thing plays out, how many sats you're going to be able to get for $1. I actually think that it should be, because of the fact that you can print fiat out of nothing, the cost of production is zero, it should be the opposite. And it will be. One day it will be, which means 1,500 USD for 1 sat. That makes more sense to me, because these units are created out of thin air. They have zero cost of production. These units are real. They're backed by energy. They're scarce, absolutely scarce. And it costs energy to create them. So that will flip. So that's the AI agents aspects of this. But the other one is that we're going to need proof of real. The product head of X in the last 2 weeks, he put out a tweet that said, we basically have 90 days left of functioning internet. So this goes right in line with the dead internet theory, which is that at some point these bots will be so cheap and so easy to replicate and so easy to just infiltrate all these different servers and centralized platforms. The dead internet theory says that at some point, and the product head of X thinks it's going to be within 90 days. So what's going to happen is that if you want to send somebody an email that you've never spoken to before, if you want to leave a comment on a post or a video, if you want to direct message somebody, basically if you want to do anything on the internet where you need to prove that you're real, Bitcoin is going to be used for that. Again, because of micropayments, I'm going to put both these things down. Why Bitcoin? Because you can send micropayments. You can send a fraction of a penny using the Bitcoin Lightning Network. You can't do that with fiat. If you try sending 10 cents of dollars to somebody, see what happens. And why is that? Because it has to go through like 10 different hands before it gets to the other person. And they all want a little cut of that. So micropayments is one, but then the proof of work or energy backed. Nobody can print them, right? These bots are smart. They have all the information times 1,000 that we have available to us. And they know that Bitcoin is the best. They know that nobody can print more Bitcoin and essentially make their currency worth less. So what you're going to do is you're going to have to use Bitcoin in the future here. I don't know when. I think it's actually going to happen sooner than people think. But you're going to have to prove that you're real. And you're going to have to use Bitcoin for that. Because again, the Lightning Network facilitates it. And you cannot create more units to create more spam. And so imagine the value of a Satoshi when all the AI agents are working 24/7, 365 for sats. Imagine what one of those sats is going to be worth. And number 2 here is proof of real. So again, going back to this demand here, both of these two things significantly increase the demand of these Satoshis. And we know that we cannot mine more of them, which means that as the people want Bitcoin, as more AI agents want Bitcoin, and as people realize that they need Bitcoin to prove that they're real, if they actually want to participate in an internet that isn't flooded with spam and scammers and bots, they're going to need to hold some Bitcoin. So just imagine what the price of these sats are going to be worth at that time. So that's why it will continue, because there's going to be more demand chasing the same amount of scarce units. It's really not that difficult to understand. You need some basic math skills. You need some economic skills, supply and demand. And if you take some time, again, I'm going to share the free resource here, the 11-day Bitcoin journey. Just get started, because once you have some Satoshis that you're holding on to, you have some skin in the game. And when you have some skin in the game, you're going to start watching for Bitcoin. You're going to be looking at news. You're going to maybe start learning things. And the more you learn about Bitcoin, the more conviction you have in Bitcoin, the crazier life's going to get, for the best. So that's what I got for you today. I don't even know what the time is on this, but I'm guessing I went a little bit over. But anyways, you can use this if you want to send some value back my way. I mean, this runs on the Bitcoin Lightning Network here. You can scan that if you have a Lightning address, and you can send any amount of sats to me, regardless of where you are in the world, regardless of what bank you use, regardless of what country you're in. Doesn't matter. And that's Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is a global asset with global demand and global liquidity. Big part of it. So we'll talk about more of this stuff going forward, but I just wanted to make a video for Saturday today on the channel. So thank you once again to everybody who's been leaving a comment, sending some value, and subscribing to the channel. Hope you're enjoying these. So that's it. Hope you have a great Saturday, maybe the best Saturday of your life. And we'll talk to you on Monday. Bye-bye.